Hey everyone, Mattman here. I'm going to share a portion of a video with you that I think you're going to love. It was amazing to me, and I think you will find it just as amazing. I was told about this video by Bond, George Bond. And he was correct. This video by young Earth creationist Ian Juby is one of my favorites. So I took this portion or segment out of his longer video, which had many other topics in it, and I just extracted this clip. So I hope you guys enjoy, and don't forget to follow Ian on his channel called Wazaloo. The link is in the description box below.
For the moment, I wish to focus on an article he wrote for the Creation Evidence Museum of Glen Rose, Texas in the 1990s, for which Dr. Carl Baugh has kindly given me permission to reproduce on my website. You can catch it here. You'll remember back to part 2 and 3 of this series, we discussed the Niagara Gorge. I pointed out that the hard limestone ledge at the top of the falls, which varies in thickness over the area, that limestone and shale layers, like just about all other sedimentary layers you find on planet Earth, are provincial in size. You can see the layer marked out on this North American map, where outcrops went east and west of Niagara Falls by 1,000 kilometers or more, outcropping all the way up into the Canadian high Arctic, thousands of kilometers away, and covering a good chunk of New York State. Now, this is where it gets important, because a lot of that rock was excavated during the construction of the Erie Canal over the years of 1793 through to 1825. The limestone and compacted gravels in this formation are assigned to the Silurian and Ordovician, and assigned an average age of 430 million evolutionary years old. Yet, as the workers excavated solid rock and compacted gravels, they routinely encountered toads entombed in solid rock. Not only were the toads not fossilized, not only were they preserved in remarkable condition, the toads were alive. The deep state of hibernation, called torpidity, keeps the toad in stasis as long as the toad is kept in temperatures below 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. The moment the toad warms up to that temperature, it cannot stay in this state of deep hibernation. Once the toads were freed from solid rock tombs, they warmed up and they would hop around in the presence of multiple eyewitnesses for a while, usually dying within the hour, but sometimes living for days. The American Journal of Science and Arts in 1822 documented the first case. The workmen engaged in blasting rock from the bed of the Erie Canal at Lockport in Niagara County lately discovered in a small cavity in the rock a toad in the torpid state, which on exposure to the air instantly came to life but died in a few moments afterwards. The cavity was only large enough to contain the body without allowing room for motion. To the surface was 6 inches through solid stone. Please notice that the cover of this issue, the article which contains the footnotes about the torpid toads found in solid rock, is an article of alleged fossil human footprints found in a rock on the shores of the Mississippi River at St. Louis. Rocks that today are assigned an age way before the time man was alleged to have evolved. We'll take a close look at the copious fossil human footprints found in the fossil record in the next lecture. To say that there was numerous reports like these living toads is an understatement. Another report from 1829 showed the skepticism from the scientists of the day. Scientists which became convinced upon further investigation of the reports. The discovery of toads in secondary rocks is often announced in public journals. A very particular account was published in the newspapers of one found at Lockport while they were cutting the canal bed in geodiferous lime rock. I collected all the facts in my power and examined the rock from which it was taken. The evidence would have been sufficient to establish any ordinary fact, but there seemed to be so many ways for illiterate laborers to deceive themselves that I took no further notice of the report. But I have since received an account of a large dark brown toad being found in a rock of millstone grit near Whitesboro, which I cannot hesitate to believe. While laying the cellared wall of Mr. Sill's house, the stonemasons had occasion to split a large stone from the quarry which I call the millstone grit. It was perfectly close-grained and compact. On opening it, they discovered a black or dark brown spherical mass about 3 inches in diameter in a cavity which it filled. On examining it particularly, they found it to be a toad, much larger than the common species and of a darker color. It was perfectly stupid, or in a stupor. It was laid upon a stone and soon began to give signs of life. In a few hours, it would hop moderately on being disturbed. They saw it in the yard moving about moderately for several days, but it was not watched by them any farther, and no one observed it farther movements. They laid 1/2 of the stone in the wall so that the cavity may still be seen. The author goes on to rule out speculations of how a modern frog could have gotten into solid rock, and that this toad must be from before the time of Noah's flood. But frogs and toads found deep below the surface in impenetrable, undisturbed clays and compact gravels was quite common. In the 1831 issue of the American Journal of Science and Arts, they provide details and multiple eyewitness accounts of several of the probably dozens of reports. In answer to the inquiry respecting frogs and toads, I can only say generally that nothing was more common than to find very far from the surface of the earth these animals apparently in perfect health and vigor. They provide multiple eyewitness accounts of one such toad broken free from a cavity in solid limestone. The report that a living toad was found in limestone rock at Lockport in 1822 I well remember. On breaking into a cavity in the stone, a toad fell out and jumped several times. It soon died. Identical reports came out of England, where individual toads, including one turned white, and even small groups of toads were broken free from solid limestone, slate, and sandstones. The workers on the Erie Canal also found hundreds of clams still alive in the diluvial deposits, get this, 45 feet, 15 meters underground. Now, this was before the advent of Lyell's Deep Time and Darwin's heretical book. So the scientists of the day considered these to be ancient deposits from Noah's flood. As if intending to make a point, workers fried some of the clams and ate them. Notice what the author specifically states in his report. He was not questioning the claims of finding living animals buried deep underground. He wanted to settle in his heart that these deposits were in fact ancient, from the time of Noah's flood in his mind. I need not be prolix or wordy in the enumeration of facts of this kind, as similar cases are frequently recorded. My object is to present a case where the deposit is decidedly diluvial. Consequently, these animals must have lain from the time of the deluge, Noah's flood, for the earth in which they are found is too compact for them to be produced by a succession of generations. Therefore, the lives of these animals are greatly prolonged by exclusion from air and light, and their natural age is more than 3,000 years. Notice also that the author throws in a very valid dig against Darwin and his theory of evolution. It should be noted the author was referring to Erasmus Darwin, Charles Darwin's grandfather, as Charles had not even published his theories yet. Now, while this may surprise some, in a few lectures we're going to see that theories of evolution did not start with Charles, and in fact, the first theories were before the time of Christ. When we get to what would Jesus believe, we'll see why that is significant. These discoveries led to a series of rather cruel and unusual experiments with toads by multiple scientists trying to understand this torpidity. So many reports that I simply do not have the time to compile them here, but they will be listed in the references provided with this video. There were so many reports of living animals being found in solid rock that it wasn't a question of were these legitimate discoveries or was it actually happening, but rather the scientists were asking the question, how was it happening? And that was from scientists of the day who still believed these rocks were a mere 4,000 years old or so. Today, those rocks and deposits are considered Silurian and Ordovician, an average of 430 million evolutionary years old. These reports were publicized before old Earth became vogue, which boosted the age of these deposits from 3,000 to 4,000 years old to an unprovable assigned age of 430 million years old. Judge for yourself. Which age has more credence and possibility? The examples of original biomatter still being found in fossils and even living organisms from allegedly ancient rocks are far too numerous to include in this lecture. Obviously, there is biological material there that can be carbon dated.
As a quick reminder to everyone, hit that like button. It actually does help. Team Standing for Truth is out.